Okay, well, now that we actually have finished Unit 2, Macroeconomics, it's time to get into International Economics. The first big topic in that is obviously going to be international trade. And we'll start off talking about arguments favoring international trade. The rest of this video, I'm going to be working my way through this Prezi, which is right here. And you guys can click on that link if you want to follow along. Okay, so as we look at the reasons for international trade, overall, the number one reason is that we get something from it, that it's helpful to us. And I don't mean us being a particular people, I mean us, everyone. So there are typically said to be 5 gains from international trade. First off, prices are going to be lower. Obviously, some countries can make things for lower prices than other countries. We'll study that in just a second about why that's true. But pretty easy to see that, lower prices are out there due to international trade. Secondly, we're going to have more choices. You can think of specialty items from different countries. You can think of brands that you may like from one country but not from another country. Cars, Toyota versus Chevrolet or whatever it might be. Okay, third, countries that lack resources are able to then get things and make things that they weren't able to get before. So they might trade for the finished product, or maybe they're just going to trade for the raw materials from which to make the product themselves. Either way, for countries that don't have an important natural resource, now they can get it through international trade. Okay, fourth, countries can take advantage of economies of scale. Again, if I'm having to make every little thing that my country needs, I'm not allowed to focus, or I'm not able to focus on one major thing. So if we go back to, when we talked about theory of the firm, and one of the good things about big firms, monopolies or oligopolies, is because they're able to take advantage of economies of scale, they're able to produce things very quickly and very efficiently, and again, resulting in lower prices, which we talked about earlier right up here. Okay, finally, and this is a new one for this year. Oh, I'm sorry, 2 more. Increased competition. Again, we look at competition being a benefit because we assume that if you're competing, you're going to do the best job possible. And again, imagine if if I were only going to give top grades to 1 or 2 students. If that was true, you guys would all be trying your very hardest to be those 1 or 2 students, maybe more so than if it's just something else. Maybe a better example is you guys do try really hard, and that's because you want to get into good colleges, good universities. Well, that's because there's competition. Okay. This last one is new to the syllabus, or at least Welker puts it into his book, and I think it's a fine argument. The simple fact of the matter is you're probably not going to attack a country or fight with a country who is either a major purchaser of your products or who is a major supplier of raw materials or of a product that you need. That's probably a pretty good thing. All right, so those are our gains from trade, and most of those can come down to these next 2 ideas that we're going to talk about, or can be seen in these next 2 ideas that we're going to talk about. Incidentally, these are not SL topics, so those of you who are SL, you can listen if you want, or you can fast forward. To me, though, these are quite interesting, and everybody ought to know them. Okay? So, absolute advantage. The idea of absolute advantage is that you are simply better at making something than somebody else is. It's simply a matter of ability. You can look at this numerically, and you do need to be able to do some calculations here, like this. So in the example, we've got 2 countries. We've got New Zealand and Liechtenstein. And what we see is they're each going to make 2 products, hats and hay. By the way, I wonder what model we might use to compare the production of 2 different products. Maybe we'll see that in a second. Anyway, so we see that New Zealand is able to make 2 hats. Liechtenstein is only able to make 1. So in this case, New Zealand has absolute advantage in the production of hats. Likewise, Liechtenstein has absolute advantage in the production of hay. They're able to make 4 to New Zealand's 3. So these numbers here, looking at New Zealand, we're saying that if they take half of their factors of production and produce hats, and half of their factors of production and produce hay, then that's what they would be able to make. So if they only focused on hats and didn't produce hay at all, they would be able to make 4. Likewise, Liechtenstein, if they only produced hay, would be able to produce 8. So we see that the total is 4 hats and 8 bales of hay, which is greater than the 7 and the 3 that we saw above. And again, that's the fundamental argument of everybody gets better in this example. If more hats and more hay is a good thing, this is how we produce it. Okay, well then we have to look at this diagrammatically, because of course it's economics. Of course we have to do that, all right? So what we can see here is we've just got production possibilities curves. Now, you do note that in this case, we're gonna only use straight lines. We don't wanna use our curved lines, because remember, that's kind of an argument or a diagram that makes this argument of increased efficiency, or, you know, taking the people who are better at hay and putting them towards hay, and towards, you know, the better people who are better at hats and having them produce hats. And it's just not the argument that we're making here. So again, just to simplify things, sort of a ceteris paribus thing, we just keep our lines straight, okay? So what we see in this is we see that they cross each other. And if they cross each other, the only argument that's being made here is absolute advantage, and it's really easy to argue for. They're better at making hats than they are. New Zealand's better at making hats. Liechtenstein's better at making hay. Liechtenstein should make hay. New Zealand should make hats, and they should trade. Okay, so that's a real simple argument, and that's how we might show it on the PPC.